All right guys, got a good one today. You know I love these G8X BMWs. So we have this super dope M4 Competition xDrive. It's literally stock right now. So we're gonna do its first mods. Love the xDrive though. So fun to drive. At first I was a little bit questionable on the xDrive, but nope, it's super worth it. So first things first, let's show you guys what we got today. Sick. What's in the box? We got the original Future Classics kit with studs. We got a 12 millimeter and 12 millimeter, I guess, all the way around. We also got these vented simulation vents, reflector deletes for the rear. We're gonna be throwing those on. Those are sweet. As well as some painted front reflectors and the K-Dub. Oh, let's see if we can get it open. There it is, guys, the Haas kit. We'll go ahead and get that put on and kind of walk you through the process of doing so. All right guys, so before I go ahead and remove the bolts on the rear arm, we're starting in the rear suspension right now. I like to mark the alignment cams on the outer here to make it easy when we're putting it back together to get the alignment at least close to where it was. The car's gonna get an alignment anyways, but this at least helps us make sure that it's more in the right place. So first things first, I got a 21 on the other side. I love to use these wobble sockets because it'll just get by our trailing arm here. I'm using a 13/16 wrench on the other side to hold it. We're gonna go ahead and zap this off. So there's the nut. The next thing you're gonna wanna do is, you don't have to do it before, but I already set it up, is a pull jack, or for you guys working at home on the ground, you're gonna want a jack stand under here to kind of take the load off the spring a little bit so you can get this bolt out. Once you get this bolt out, we're gonna go ahead and remove the shock bolt as well. And basically this lower arm is gonna be able to pivot down and we're gonna be able to pull out the spring combo. So let's go ahead and do that. All right guys, now we're gonna go ahead and lower the suspension down and you'll see the lower arm come off the knuckle here and your shock absorber just hang from the top. So we're gonna go ahead and pull the arm down and pull the whole spring combo out like that. Super easy, takes maybe 5 minutes. So right here in the middle, you've got your rear springs. These are your front springs. They send you your little ride height adjusters right here. So these are gonna go just like that, with this little nipple pointing up towards the top of the car. It's pretty much the same thing reverse. All you gotta do is swap over this lower pad. There's a lower spring pad, it's just a little cushion. So this just literally pops right onto the spring here. Super easy, just like that. You have this locating nipple, which locates itself in the control arm. And it's pretty much as simple as that. So let's go ahead and get this back in the car. All right, so real quick, before I put the spring in, I wanna note something here, guys. So there is 2 nipples. Technically, you could mount this thing the wrong way, but the little nipple on the spring pad goes in the most outer hole. So we're gonna go ahead and do that right now. It can be kind of tricky with the top hat not, we lost the thing. So it can be kind of tricky. As you just seen, trying to get this all in here as one person, but it's definitely doable. So we'll go ahead and reinstall our little spring pad. Like that, make sure it's butted up to the end of the spring. You just gotta pull this arm down really hard. Get it in there. Make sure that it's pinned up. It likes to get caught on the outer ball joint there. You can see this guy's wanting to come through here, which means it's lined up. We'll go ahead and use the spring compressor to bring the arm up. Full stand, I should say. Once you get it up a little bit, the shock will want to line up, so then we can throw the bolt in for the shock. Throw the nut on it, hold it in place. So we're almost there for the knuckle. Slowly got to bring it up just to find. You want to shoot this so they can see. So it's kind of an eccentric hole. You just got to move it up until you can get your bolt in. We're about there. Sometimes it helps to use a little bit of a pry bar between the shock and the knuckle to kind of separate them, which we're gonna have to probably do here. I'm gonna have to chop this up. These are a little bit more tricky than the shock bolt, as the shock just likes to line up, or that doesn't. So there we go, we're in. We're gonna go ahead and take our spacer. You can kind of see where the bolt used to sit. One side doesn't have that, so I always like to put it on the same way that it came off. And these will take a little rotating to get that washer in. If you look, you can see the washer's kind of hanging over the edge. So to fix that, to get it to drop in, we're gonna just rotate the bolt a little bit until she wants to fall in. There we go. So now she's in. Now we're gonna line it back up to where it was, about where it was, and we'll go ahead and suck this thing down. We're gonna go ahead and line up our little paint marks, marker marks. So gotta turn it just a little bit, and then lock that in with the impact, and we'll go back and torque it in a second. And we're gonna do the same with the shock bolt, but with the shock bolt, you wanna make sure, because this outer one is a ball joint, so it can pivot, so making sure it's under tension doesn't matter. But on the shock bolt, you wanna compress suspension like as if it was on the ground, and lock that in. And the torque on these for the shock is 74 foot-pounds and 108 on the outer. So we're gonna do the outer first. We're gonna get our 21 chrome socket, throw it up on the outer, there. Torqued, now we'll do the shock. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the other side. So one thing to note, here on the driver's side, there is a level sensor that we need to disconnect, or you will potentially snap this plastic arm or hurt the sensor. So you can see that right there. So we're gonna go ahead and remove it off the lower little nipple. And what I like to do here is just use like a pry bar and pop it off. Super simple. All right guys, just to reiterate what we've done, you're gonna jack up the lower arm to put some compression on it. You're gonna hit the 18mm bolts for the shock, pull that out. You're gonna hit the 21 for the cam adjuster on the outer. You're also, on the driver's side, gonna remove your level sensor arm. Don't forget to reinstall it when you're putting it all back together. Once you put everything in and the bolts back through, you torque the shock bolt to 74 foot-pounds and the adjuster to 108. And that's it, it's done. So let's go ahead and move on to the front. All right guys, so you're gonna use a 17mm Allen. One of the first things we're gonna do, go to the other side and do the same thing. All right, so you guys that don't have an xDrive, you won't have to do that step of removing the axle shaft bolt. It's only for the xDrive guys. We're also gonna disconnect this speed sensor because we're gonna be tipping this shock over. So it clips on right here on the subframe and then also plugs into the sensor there. So you unplug it and then push it off the strut. I said sway bar, but I meant strut. Next thing we're gonna do is pull the top hat bolt down so that we can lower the whole suspension and tip it out towards us. So we're gonna go ahead and disconnect our adjustment sensor. So what I like to do is bring the car low enough so I can get a jack under it to support the suspension. And we're gonna go ahead and zap this 18mm 12-point nut off. We'll set that aside for safekeeping. Now we're gonna be able to lower the whole strut assembly. If you watch in there, you'll see. All right guys, we're gonna walk you through the process of taking apart the front suspension to replace the springs. So first things first, we're gonna pull these 3 pop pins here at the top. One right here, last one. I like to use a pick to get up underneath the head. This one's really stuck. There it is. So then you can pull up on the panel and pull the whole thing out. The other thing we're gonna do is unlock. So there's a little twist lock here, unlock it. That gives us a little bit of room to go ahead and pull this plastic panel up. Don't have to do this, but I like to do it just to help get it out of the way. Just jiggle this harness up and then unplug it. This is the EDC sub harness. Goes into the top of the strut here. So we'll go ahead and pull this over so we can get the sub harness through here, and then we're gonna just jiggle until this cover comes off, and then you can reach below it and pull the connector out and it just pulls straight up. So that's how you get the sub harness off. We're gonna set that aside. Next up is removing the axle shaft bolt. And now you're gonna need a 17 mil Allen, a big one, big boy. That came off easy because I've already loosened it. So you will need like a big impact or somebody to stand on the brakes and hit it with a big wrench or ratchet. Next up is the speed sensor on the strut. There's a clip on the back of the strut that this clips into. So you'll unclip that, move the harness to the side. Next thing I like to do is undo all of the ABS speed sensor connectors so that we can get a lot of play when it comes time to dropping the strut out. So there's 3 of them. We're gonna undo the 3. One on the frame here, one on the back just over there, right behind here, and then there's one on the front here. So after we do that, we get all those connectors undone that hold it to the strut and knuckle. We're gonna undo the brake line. So we're gonna undo this brake line right here. It's just held on with rubber. It's like a little rubber grommet. So you just pull up on that and it'll work its way off. It's hard with the camera in the way. So once you jiggle this thing off, it just basically slides up, put it out of the way. Now next up, the next thing I like to do is undo our sway bar end link. It's a 16 millimeter. You can just impact these. There is an Allen head in there or T30 star on these, I guess. If you do have one that spins on you, usually when they're new, they won't spin, but sometimes on older cars, they will. So what's nice is these cars are all so new and fresh that everything just comes apart real easily. Now, once that's all undone, we're gonna put a jack under the lower arm to support it, compress the strut up a little bit so we can remove the upper 18 mil 12-point nut that's up here on the top of the strut. That'll allow us to drop the strut down far enough to pull it out and remove the spring combo. So let's do that now. So I got my 12.16 in there. Put it right under the ball joint. Compress it a couple clicks. So now we're gonna go back to the top. We've got our 12-point socket on here and the impact. Just like that, our 12-point nut comes off. So now we can lower the jack down and the whole strut combo, as you can see, has basically fallen down out of the way. So from here, we're gonna just gently push this down. On the xDrive, it's a little bit more complicated because the axle gets stuck and wants to kind of hang you up. So you gotta make sure to pull it out of the way. And it does help. Just the shaft sometimes needs to be compressed. I feel like on the non-xDrive cars, it just comes out really easily. On these xDrive cars, you gotta compress the shaft just a little bit to get it outside of the strut tower. Hard to see, but it's just hanging up just barely. So I'm gonna grab a pry bar and just pry it down a little bit and get it out. So we'll show you that here in a second. So after you do that and pull the strut out, I did forget to mention on the driver's side, there is a level sensor, just like in the back, that clips onto the lower arm. So I unclip that real quick and basically you just let it hang here. I like to support the rotor a little bit so that your brake line and everything's not being pulled super hard. Your ABS line and your brake wear sensor, which is only on the driver's side as well. So once we do that, we can go ahead and pull the whole spring and boot combo off. We're gonna keep this boot, we're gonna need it, and then we're gonna use a different bump stop that comes with the springs, as well as a lower plate. So here now we're gonna basically hammer this thing off the strut, which will pop this little white seal guard off as well. And then we'll reinstall that after we get the new KW adjustable turn plate on here. But let's go ahead and do that next. I've hammered this bad boy off. Slides up like that, and you're left with the strut. So we're gonna clean that up real good. We're gonna put a little bit of anti-seize on it, and then we're gonna install the new one. And then we'll install this white cap again. So set that aside. Let's go grab the KW adjuster. So this is what it looks like. We're gonna go ahead and tap this on. There's also corresponding bump stop that's shorter than the factory one to go with it. So we're gonna take all this over to the car and install it. Now, what I like to do is pull these rings off of here. There's a little plastic buffer ring, and then I pull the purple one off just to make sure we don't damage it in the process of hammering this bad boy on. So before I throw this on there, I'm gonna put a little bit of anti-seize on here and around the strut. So I give it a quick wipe down. What we're gonna do is take some anti-seize. You can see where the surface is tight, and it's basically gonna be a real tight fit where the previous one was. We'll go ahead and lube that up real good all the way around, as well as right here where it hangs over on this lip. Make sure we get a good, easy fitment. So I've gone ahead and put anti-seize inside of the adjuster as well. This sway bar end link goes straight down in line with this guy here, the pinch. So that's how we're gonna orient it, putting it on the car. It's gonna go down like this. And then we're gonna take our rubber mallet and we're gonna tap this bad boy on. So try and make it as straight with that as possible. You'll know when it bottoms out because one, you can see in here, it'll be flush with the tube, as well as the noise will change. Right now it's making kind of a hollow sound. As you can hear there, it actually just changed like right there on that last like 2 swings. Double check. She's got to be all the way seated. It did turn a little bit when we were hammering it, so we're gonna smack it back the other way. Make sure it's straight, like that, in line with the strut. Pinch. All right, should be good. And we are. That's it. Move on. Clean up all the gunk, and then you're gonna reinstall this white cap, which also takes a little bit of persuasion. Like that, and it's reinstalled. So now we're gonna put the spring and the ring adjuster on and continue on. All right, so one quick thing before you do put this white cap on, you do have to put your adjuster ring on. This guy will go over it, but the adjuster ring won't. So my bad there when I said that. Now, next up is going to be your spring. I'm gonna slide your spring over. And then we're gonna take our boot and our new bump stop, slide the bump stop over. And we're gonna slide our boot over that. And there's a little edge, there's a little tab right here that you're gonna butt the edge of the spring up to. So that's the way it's supposed to be seated on there like that. And we're gonna take this whole thing and we're gonna push past the fender, and then we're gonna put it back into place. I need to get you out of the way to do that. So once we tip it back, we're going to put it through the hole here. It's easier to see at the top. So the shaft has come through the top, and then we're gonna put the nut on it, and we're gonna give that a little zap so that it holds itself in. Thread it in a couple threads, and if it twists on you, you can hold the shaft of the strut. Shaft doesn't twist, a lot of time they won't, but it was just spinning a little bit there, so I gave it a little hold to help. And then we're gonna start reinstalling the rest of this stuff. Basically just reversal. So these guys are gonna clip in here. So once you get everything back together, time to swap over your speed sensor. It's a T30 bolt on the old strut perch or spring perch. We're gonna go ahead and back that out. Remove the speed sensor and the bolt. There's a little locating pin here. So we're gonna go ahead and take that locating pin, locate it first, and then pivot it to where the bolt goes in. Then we're gonna just hand tighten that down. And the torque on this is 8 or 10 Newton meters. I gotta double check, I believe it's 8. So I've already zapped the sway bar end link, but we're gonna make sure that it's torqued. Torque is 44 foot-pounds. And this upper one here, this 18 is 54. So we're gonna go ahead and torque that as well. All right, and we're done. All right guys, so I've just done one paint reflector. You can actually on this car, just get it right through here. Use the heat gun right here to heat up the old one and just basically pry it off. Once it gets hot enough, it just basically kind of wants to fall out. We've got the other one here. We're about to do it right now. So I'm just gonna heat this side up real good and then just come in from behind here with like a little plastic pry tool and just pry that up. And then once you kind of get this first side undone, you can kind of just peel it off the other side. And then I rub the glue so that there is no residual glue. I wipe it down with a little bit of like brake cleaner or like Goo Gone, something like that, and then make sure it's real clean and no residue of the Goo Gone or anything else on there. That's kind of why I like brake clean. And then once that's done, you basically just peel off the backing on the new one and stick it in there. So let's go ahead and get it done. All right guys, so I'm just taking the heat gun, carefully heating the whole thing, working from the front and the back until it's nice and warm to the touch. Hard to do with one hand, but you don't want to get it so hot that you spoil the paint, but just nice and warm. So it wants to let go of the reflector. So we're almost there. I'm gonna have to put the camera down, but I'm gonna pry this thing out. I'll show you what it looks like after. So basically, once you get the thing loose enough, it'll just come out with most of the glue still stuck to it. You can look in here. There's a few little pieces. I'm just going to roll it with my hand. See, I'm just rolling it down. And you'll just pull off little pieces of glue that are left behind. Just roll it up real good, and then wipe it down with some cleaner, and you're basically ready to stick in your new one. All right guys, here's the finished product. Super easy to install. You don't even need to remove anything, honestly, for these front ones. For the back ones, it's gonna be a different story. So let's go ahead and move on to the back reflector deletes. Looking pretty. All right guys, she's down. We need to take it around the block and let it settle, but much better fitment. Rear reflector deletes are in and finished. Whoop. If you like this video, be sure to check out the next one. And if you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to subscribe and like the video. It helps a lot. Thanks, and see you in the next one.